Hi everyone, this is Raja from Charger Games and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to start creating our very first C# script and we're going to see how we can create our very first C# script in Unity. So with that being said, let's get started and start our C# learning journey. So as you can see here, I have an empty 3D Unity project opened and hope you know how to do that. And once you are into this project, if you want to see the same view as I am, from the top right corner, simply select this 2x3 layout. Okay, probably you are in this default layout, so you can simply choose this 2x3 layout and now you will be in the same view as I am. Alright, so once you have done that, now as you can see here we have something called scene view where we will edit everything, and this is the game view where we can actually see the results of our game rendered from the camera. Alright, so as you can see here we have in the hierarchy we have already a scene created, and on the right side if you go inside the assets folder, inside that we have a scenes folder, and inside that we have this sample scene created. Let's go and rename this one to game. This is optional but you can do that. Okay, so now inside our assets folder we're gonna create our very first C# script. To do that, inside the assets folder, simply right click, create, and simply click on this C# script. Okay, and once you have clicked that, now as you can see a new C# script has been created and already it is waiting for me to give it a name. So let's go and rename it to first script. You can name it any other thing as if you want as well, and as you can see our new script has been created with the name first script. Now whenever you create a new script, it doesn't have the ability to do something by itself. So you should always attach your script to a game object, and after that the script will start working. As you can see, currently we have a script, and even if we do something with it, it cannot do anything because it is not attached to a game object. Alright, now in order to attach it to a game object, you can go here, and from here you can either create an empty game object, or you can simply go to this 3D object and select a cube. So now as you can see here we have a cube in the scene, and now I'm gonna simply keep it as it is, and now I can simply drag and drop the first script on top of the cube while selecting the cube, and then the script will be attached to the cube, and then we can do anything that we want to do with the cube from the script. Okay, so I can select the cube and drag and drop the first script over here. And now as you can see, the first script has been attached to our cube. There are other ways to do it as well, so I can go ahead and remove it. And now I can simply go to add component, go to scripts, and from here as you can see we have the first script here which has already been created. So from here as well we can attach the script. Now as you can see here we have a checkbox that means whether the script is working or whether the script is activated or not. So make sure whenever you attach a script, it should have this check mark, otherwise nothing will work. Okay, so in order for this script to work, it should be checked. If it is unchecked, then it's not gonna work. Okay, so here as you can see our first script has been opened. Now you can simply double click on here or here, anywhere, and the script will be opened in the default script editor. Now in our case we have selected Visual Studio as the default script editor, so that will open in the Visual Studio. You can go to edit and preferences, and from here you can go to this external tools, and now here as we'll see the external script editor is set to Microsoft Visual Studio. So if you want, you can simply go to this browse option, and from here you can select any other script editor that you like and use it for your Unity projects as well. Okay, so now I can simply double click on this first script and it will be opened in the Visual Studio Code Editor. So let's go and double click. So now as you can see it is being opened in the Visual Studio Code Editor. So now as you can see our script file has opened inside the Visual Studio IDE. Okay, so as you can see this is how the very first script looks like. So as you can see here we have something called first script, and before that we have the name class, and we're going to learn about all these things in later videos. For now, this is how the very first script looks like. Okay, and this is how it looks like when it opens inside the Visual Studio. Now we can simply go ahead and minimize it, and as you can see here we have the cube and we have this first script attached to the cube. Now, since this script is attached to this cube, so whenever we want to do anything with the cube, we can simply write instructions inside the script, and according to that instructions, the cube will work. Let's say we want to move the cube, or we want to destroy the cube, or we want to change the color of the cube. We can do all these things by writing some code inside this first script that we have created. Okay, so this is how we create and attach our very first script. Now here's another thing that I want to talk about, and that is really important. You should always make sure that you name the first script's name and the class name same. Okay, so as you can see here, it is named as first script, and if I open the first script, you will see inside the class also it is written public class first script. Alright, so now that we have created our very first script, let's go and try to create our very first code so that we can do something interactive in Unity. So the most basic thing that you can do is inside the start function, you can simply write print, and then within bracket, within quotations, simply write I can code. Okay, so now whenever you will run Unity, what will happen is this start function gets called at the beginning of the game. So it will simply go ahead and print I can code whenever you run this project. So let's go ahead and save this and minimize it to go back to Unity. Now since we are printing it, it will actually show up in the console. So to open up the console, you can simply go to Window, and from here you can go to General, and from here you can go to Console. Now depending on the version of Unity that you are using, it might be at different position, but always go to this console, and from here you can actually see whatever message gets printed. So now if I go ahead and click on this play button, this will actually play the game or run the game. So let's click on play, and as you can see, whenever I click on play, it prints I can code on this Unity console. Okay, so this is how you write your very first code and actually print something on the screen. So let's go and do something more interactive to actually see that we can actually code. So let's open up our first script one more time, and now inside the start function, after writing print, simply write destroy, and within that simply write game object. So now what will happen is whenever the game starts, the first script will actually destroy the game object with which it is attached. So in this case, it is attached to the cube. So whenever we start the game, it will actually destroy the cube. So let's go and save this, go back to Unity, and now let's click on play. So 3, 2, 1, play. And as you can see, as soon as I play, the cube gets destroyed because that's what we have written in our code. Let's try it again. And as you can see, whenever we start, the cube gets destroyed. So this is how we write our code and attach it to a script, and then attach the script to a game object. And that's how we control the behavior of the game object through our code inside this C# script. So I hope you really enjoyed and learned how to create your very first script and how to write your very first code from this video. So with that done, we have a lot more things coming, and I hope you're really excited to learn. So I'm going to see you in the next videos, and we're going to keep learning more. Hi everyone, this is Raja from Charger Games, and welcome back to this video. So now that we have learned how to create our very first script, in this video we're going to learn about our very first script in a lot more detail. So with that being said, let's get started. So first of all, as you can see inside the assets folder, here we have the first script. Now this might work when you have one script only, but when you have multiple scripts, then you should organize those scripts inside a separate folder. Okay, so always inside your assets folder, right click, create a new folder, and simply name this one scripts, and keep all of your scripts inside this scripts folder only. So let's drag and drop our first script inside the scripts folder. So now as you can see inside our scripts folder, we will see all of the scripts that are available for us to use in the game. Okay, so now that we have learned how to create your first script, in this video I have a quick challenge for you. Let's go and create a second script and name that script second script, and then attach the script to this cube and deactivate the first script. So this will help you to practice creating and attaching a script to a game object. So let's go create another script named second script, attach that to the cube, and deactivate the first script. So let's pause the video, do that, and then I'm going to show you the solution. So welcome back. I hope you have already done that. So in order to do that, first of all, inside the scripts folder, I'm going to right click, create a new C# script, and I'm going to name this one second script. Okay, and now that I have named it, now I'm going to select my cube and then drag and drop and attach this second script to my cube. So select my cube, and from here I can go to this add component scripts, and from here I can select this second script, or I can simply go ahead and select the cube and drag and drop the second script over it. And now since we need to remove the first script, I can simply disable it so that it doesn't work, or I can simply go here and click on remove component to remove the script. So for now I'm simply disabling it so that it doesn't work. Okay, so now you will see even if I run the game, the cube doesn't get destroyed because the first script is not working. But if I go ahead and activate it, and now if I run, now you will see the cube gets destroyed because the code from the first script will start working. Okay, so now with that down, let's go and deactivate this and open both of these scripts inside the Visual Studio Code Editor. So let's double click to open it up. Okay, so now let's try to understand what all these things mean whenever you create your simple new script. So here as you can see, we have an empty script open. So whenever you create a new empty script, this is all the things that you can see on that script. Okay, so let's try to understand slowly what all these things means. So first of all, as you can see here, we have something called public class second script, which is the name of this script file and also the name of this class. Okay, so C# is an object-oriented programming language, and a class is the most basic thing of an object-oriented programming language. Okay, so classes and objects are the basic things of an object-oriented programming language. So this class can be thought of a blueprint of the object. So whenever you create your very first script, a new class gets created by default. So this is the class, and as you can see, public class second script is written. So this is the name of the class. Now, as you can see here, we have two curly braces. So the class body is inside this curly braces. So whatever you have written inside this curly braces is the body of the class. Okay. So now, as you can see, I can also write this here or also write this here. So whenever we write something like this to curly braces, whatever we have inside these two curly braces are part of this class body. Now here, as you can see, we have something called mono behavior, and here also we have a colon. So this is something called inheritance. So in this case, we are inheriting from this mono behavior class, and this mono behavior class is the base class. As you can see, if I hover over it, it says mono behavior is a base class that many Unity scripts derive from. So Unity has created a lot of built-in functions, methods, classes for us to use so that we can easily create our games. And all of these things are part of this mono behavior class. Okay, so whenever we want to use Unity's built-in functionalities in our code, we need to derive from this mono behavior class. And for that, first of all, we need to write a colon and then we need to write mono behavior. Okay, so as an example, let's say here inside the start function, I write something which is specific to Unity. So let's say I write this print function, or let's say I write this destroy function. So I write destroy game object. So this destroy function is a Unity specific function, and as I have said you already, all the Unity specific functions derive from this mono behavior. So now if I go ahead and delete this mono behavior, let's go and simply delete it, and now as you can see, it is giving us an error. As you can see, destroy class, the destroy name does not exist in the current context. Okay, because we are not deriving from the mono behavior anymore, Unity doesn't know, or the script Visual Studio doesn't know where this destroy is coming from, because we have not created anything that is named destroy. So if I write it here again, now as you can see, the error will be gone. So now Unity knows that this destroy function is part of this mono behavior, and we are deriving from it, and we're using that destroy function which has been created by Unity for us to use in our games. Okay, so this is how we derive from this mono behavior. Now, as we have already understood this class, on top, as you can see, we have some statements called using system.collections, using system.collections.generic, using Unity engine. So what are these things? So these things are called namespaces. So in Unity, there's a lot of library of codes. So all those codes are part of a specific namespaces. So as there is a lot of code created for us, so all those things are separated and stored separately under different namespaces so that we can easily find them. Okay, so as an example, this Unity Engine namespace is the basic namespace for most of the things that we're going to use in Unity. So if I hover over it, as you can see, namespace Unity Engine, because this is a namespace. And whenever we want to use something that's part of that namespace, we need to write this using Unity Engine statement here. Okay, so there are a lot of other namespaces, like whenever we want to use something that is related to UI or user interface, we need to write using Unity Engine, not editor, Unity Engine.ui. The same way, whenever we're going to use something related to scene management, we need to write using Unity Engine.scene management. So this way, there are a lot of namespaces, and whenever we want to use specific code from that namespace, we need to mention that on top of our code by writing using Unity Engine namespace. So as you can see, this Unity Engine namespace is the basic namespace, and most of the things that you're going to use are part of this Unity Engine namespace. So whenever you write a code, make sure you keep this on top of your code. If you go ahead and delete these things, these namespaces are not something that we're going to use in this. So let's go and delete this. And whenever we delete all these things, you will see that nothing happens. As you can see, nothing happens because none of the things from that namespaces were using in this code. But here, this mono behavior, this destroy, all those things are part of this Unity Engine namespace. So if I go ahead and simply delete this Unity Engine namespace, if I go ahead and delete it, now as you can see, now we are getting error from this mono behavior, destroy, game object, and all those things, because now Unity doesn't recognize where these things are coming from. So whenever you need to use the Unity specific functions, classes, objects, or anything related to that, make sure you write using Unity namespace on top of your code. The same way, whenever we need to use something related to scene management, let's say whenever we want to reload a scene, then we need to write scene manager. And as you can see, whenever we write scene manager, automatically Visual Studio imports this Unity Engine.scene management namespace. And if I go ahead and delete that, then this will give us errors. So that way, we have different namespaces that we can use, and from that we can use code to use in our games. Okay, and this Unity Engine namespace should always be present in your code whenever you're going to use this mono behavior and use Unity specific functions or functionalities. Alright, so this is how the basic script works, and this is the structure of a basic script. And as you can see, by default here we have something called a start and update. So these are the two functions that's created by Unity by default. So the start function gets called at the start of the game. So whenever you start the game and click on this play button, this start function gets called. So whenever you want to do something at the beginning of your game, you're going to do that inside this start function. And this update function gets called again and again and again every frame whenever your game runs. So let's say your game runs 60 frames per second. So that means the update function gets called 60 times every single second. Okay. So all the tasks that you want to do repeatedly, you can do that inside the update function. Let's say you want to take some inputs, or let's say you want to move your object again and again and again slowly towards the right. In those cases, you can use this update function and slowly move your object towards the right. Or let's say if you want to check whether you have clicked a button, in that case, you can check that in the update. Okay, so these two can be called as an event function. So the start and update, all these are event functions. There are a lot of different event functions in Unity. We can learn more about that in later videos. For now, we're gonna simply learn about the start and update function. So in the start, destroy game object only gets called at the start. So let's say here, first of all, inside the start function, I write a simple code. Let's say I write print start. So print start. So now what will happen is whenever the game starts, this start code will run because this start function gets called at the beginning of the game. So let's save this, go back to Unity. So now as you can see, our second script is attached and it's activated. Let's open up our window, general console. And now whenever I click on this play button, 3, 2, 1 play, you will see start gets printed, and it gets printed only once, because as I have said to you already, our start function gets called only once at the beginning of the game. Now let's open up our script one more time. Now inside the update function, let's write print and within quotations update. And now I can simply press this semicolon to end this statement, and whenever you want to end any statement, you need to write this semicolon. So this semicolon means end of statement, and you can write another thing from the next line. Okay, and if you don't write this semicolon, then it will give you error. Okay, so always make sure to end your statements with a semicolon. Alright, so now as you can see, we have print start inside the start, and we have print update inside the update function. So let's go and save this, go back to Unity, and now if I go ahead and click on play, you will see this start gets called only once at the beginning, but this update is getting called again and again and again, as you can see 5, 9, 600, 700 times, because this update loop gets called again and again and again, and that is why this update function is getting called again and again, and that is why anything that we have written inside the update function gets called again and again and again. Okay, so whenever we want to do some tasks only once at the beginning of the game, we want to do that inside the start function, and whenever we want to do some tasks again and again and again while our game runs, we're going to do that inside the update function. Okay, so this is how we have learned what our simple empty script looks like. And whenever we create a script, we have this mono behavior default, we have this Unity engine namespace by default, also we have this start and update function by default. So we have learned all the things that we have in your default script whenever you create it. So I hope you really enjoyed and learned a lot from this video. So thank you so much for watching, and from the next video we're going to learn a lot more. So go ahead and practice it, and I'm going to see you in the next video very soon. Hi, this is Raja and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn about variables in C# and Unity. So let's get started. So inside my scripts folder, I have created another script named variables. I have my cube, and I'm going to drag and drop the variable script on the cube, and let's double click to start writing our code. Okay, so let's understand what is a variable. You can think of a variable as something where we can store any values. Okay, let's say we have a score in our game. So what you're gonna do, we're gonna store that score inside a variable called score. Or let's say we have something to store the player's name. In that case, we're gonna create another variable which will be player name, and inside that we're gonna store our player's name like Raja or Sam or anything like that. So this way, in order to store data in our projects or in our scripts or in our code, we need something called variables, and variables can store different types of data, and we can also change that data anytime in our code. Okay, so there are different types of variables. First of all, we're going to learn only one. So let's say we need to store our score inside something. So for that, we're going to do, we're going to simply write score here, and then say we're going to give a value to this score. Let's say in the beginning, the value of the score will be 0, then it will be 1, then it will be 2. So now, in order to store a value inside this score variable, we need to write equal sign, and then let's say we're going to write 5. That means currently our score is 5. And then, as I've told you already, whenever you want to conclude a statement in C#, you need to write a semicolon. Okay, so here as you can see, we have a score variable, and inside that we are storing the value 5. Now as you can see, it still gives us errors. So why is that? That is because along with creating a variable, we also need to specify what kind of variable it is, and we call that a data type. So a data type pretty much means what kind of variable we are creating. Let's say we want to store something called 5, which is an integer. In order to store that, we need to create an integer type variable. If you want to store a name, in that case, we want to create a string type of variable. If we want to try to put a decimal value, let's say 1.5, in that case, we need to create a variable of type float. So all these int, float, string, all these are called the data types. That means which kind of data that you can store inside that type of variable. So in this case, this score can store an integer value only, 0, 1, 2, 3, 9, 9, 9, 5, 5, 5, anything like that. So for that, we need to make this score an integer type of variable. And in order to do that, simply we need to write int, which is short for int, in front of this. So now Unity recognizes it and C# also recognizes it, and as you can see now it has created a variable of type score which has int value. That means it can only store int values inside it. Now let's say instead of putting an int value here within quotations I can write my name. Let's say I write my name. Let's write Raja. And let's see what happens. So now if I save this, you can see it gives me an error because it cannot convert from a string to an integer. Okay, so whenever you create an integer type of variable, make sure to store only integer values inside that. So here I'm going to keep it 5 and now the error is gone. The same way, let's go and create another float variable. So float, and let's say we're going to write position, and then we're going to write 2.5f. So whenever you want to create a float variable, write f after that and also make sure to write a point. Okay, so now this float variable can store a decimal point and a variable with decimal point. The same way, let's say we want to store only one single character, let's say A or B or C or anything like that. In that case, we're going to create something called a character type of variable or a char. So we're going to write char, and then let's now write C, and inside that within single quotations we're going to write A. Okay, so this C variable can store only one character. That is why it is a character type of variable. Now let's say we want to store a name of a player. For that we need to create a variable of type string. So we're going to write string player name, and then within double quotations we need to write Raja, and then write semicolon here. So this way, as you can see here, we have created 4 different type of variables. This is an integer variable, this is a float variable, this is a character variable, this is a string type of variable. Now there are a lot of different other type of variables, but for now these are the basics that you need to know for now. Okay, so when we have a value stored inside a variable, so inside start, let's say I try to print, and within that, instead of writing 5, I simply write score. So now what will happen? It will check what is the value of score. And as we have written here already, the value of score is 5. So instead of printing score, it will print the value that is stored inside the variable, that is 5. Okay, so let's save this and go back to Unity to check if this actually works. So let's save this, go back to Unity. So let's open up our console, window, general, and console. And let's clear all these things. And now if I go ahead and click on play, as you can see it prints 5 because we have asked Unity to print the value of the score variable. The same way we can write other variables or print the values of other variables as well. So let's say I write print player name. So now what will happen is it will go ahead and print the value that we have stored inside this player name variable, that is Raja. So let's go and save this and go back to Unity again and check how this one works. Okay, so let's click on play. And now as you can see, first it prints 5 and then it prints Raja. So first if I click on play, first it prints 5, which is the value of score variable. Then it prints Raja, which is the value of the name variable. All right, so with that done, now let's go and take a look at some practical example of this. But before that, I want to talk about one more thing. So as you can see, whenever we create a variable, by default, it is created as a private variable. So a private variable can be edited only within the script. But when we create a public variable, that variable can be accessed from the other scripts as well. And also we can see the variable from the Unity editor. For now, if you go to Unity, as you can see in the variable script, we cannot see anything. We can only see the variable script, and that is attached to Unity. But let's go and try making this public. So if I go ahead and make this int a public, so let's click on public int score. And also here, let's write public string player name. Now you will see that both of these variables are public, but these variables are not public, these are private. So these two variables can be edited from the Unity editor directly, and we don't need to open the script. So these two variables will show up in the editor, because they are public variables. So let's go and save this, and now let's go back to Unity. So now as you can see, since score and player name, both of them are public variables, both of them are showing up in the Unity editor, and now we can edit them directly from here instead of going to the code. So if you remember previously, whenever we have this window general console, and let's go and click on play. So whenever we click on play, as you can see, now 5 is printed and Raja is printed. So now because we want to print the value of score variable, and also we want to print the value of player name variable. So now instead of this, from the variables menu, from the variables directly here, let's go and change the score value to 10. Let's change it to 10. And for the player name, instead of writing Raja, let's write Sam here. And now if I go ahead and click on play, now you will see this time 10 and Sam is getting printed. So previously only 5 and Raja was getting printed because that was the value of these variables. And if you open up the script, you will see here we still have the 5 and Raja written here. But we are printing score and player name both, but this 5 and Raja are not getting printed. And that is because these are public variables, and we have changed their values from the Unity editor directly, and now their values are 10 and Sam. Okay, so even though 5 and Raja is written in the code, 10 and Sam is getting printed. Okay, so that is how public variables work. Now let me go ahead and show you one more practical example so that you can understand these variables even better. So let's go to our script one more time, and inside the start function, let's go and destroy this game object. So I'm going to write destroy game object, and now after a comma, let's say I write 5f. So this is the time after which this game object will be destroyed. So in this case, let's write 2f as well. Now let's say I don't want to write this 2 or 5 from here. I want to write this 2 or 5 directly from our editor. I don't want to write it in the code. In that case, here I'm going to create another new variable. Let's say I'm going to create the variable named float destroy timing. Let's say I create a variable called float destroy timing, and here instead of writing 2f, I simply write destroy timing. So now here we don't need to write a specific value. Instead of that, we can simply write this destroy timing variable, and now we can go back to Unity, and you will see here we have another new field with destroy timing written here, and that is not written because we haven't make it public. So let's open the script one more time and make sure you write public float destroy timing, and now you will see this will be shown up. So press Ctrl S to save the code and go back to Unity, and now you will see that public variable will be displayed here. As you can see, destroy timing new variable is getting displayed here. Now here we're going to write, let's say 3. So that means our destroy timing is 3, and after 3 seconds this cube will get destroyed. So let's open up our console. We don't need the console this time. Let's click on play, and let's wait for it. 3, 2, 1, boom. And as you can see, just after 3 seconds, this cube gets destroyed. Okay. So this way, as you can see, we have checked a practical example of this variable in our code directly. Now here I have a quick challenge for you. Let's go and change the destroy timing to some other values. Let's say go ahead and change the destroy timing to 5, and then go ahead and try it, and then we're going to see it. Okay, so hope you did that because that's very, very easy. So what you need to do is you need to simply go to this destroy timing variable and change the value to 5. And now if I go ahead and click on play, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. And as you can see, after 5 seconds, this cube gets destroyed. So this is how we learn about variables. So I hope you really enjoyed and learned a lot of info from this video. So go ahead and practice these things and you will learn even more. So thank you so much for watching. In the next videos, we're going to learn a lot more. So I'm going to see you in the next videos. Hi everyone, this is Raja from Charger Games and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn how we can use the coding exercises in the new Udemy platform. So I'm going to show you by example how you can solve a coding exercise and learn from that. So let's get started. So as you can see in this course here, I have some coding exercises. So I'm going to go ahead, and as you can see here, we have the lecture, and just after this lecture, we have these two coding exercises. So I'm going to go ahead and solve any one of them. So I'm going to select this one. And as you can see, once I select that, I get this coding exercises screen. Okay, so this is how a coding exercise looks like in the new Udemy platform. All right, so let's go. First of all, here we have some instructions. Now, before we start, I want to tell you that currently Udemy platform supports many different programming languages. It also supports C# programming language. And in this case, we are only learning how to use the common features of C#. So because Udemy doesn't support the Unity's API, so we cannot learn how to use Unity specific codes here, but still we can learn how to form logic and functions and different methods of the C# programming language from here. All right, so let's get started. So first of all, as you can see here, we have a simple exercise file where we need to write our code. And as you can see here, we have some instructions. And first of all, the problem says calculate the triple of a number. So that means return the triple of the number passed as a parameter in the give triple function. So in the videos prior to this exercise, you will of course learn about functions and parameters and how they will work. So here, as you can see, we have a give triple function. And this is how the things will work. Whenever I give 1 to give triple, it should return me 3. Whenever I give 3 to give triple, it should return me 9. So this is how the function should return. Okay, and you should not modify any of the code. You should only write your code where write your code here and write parameter here. This kind of comments are written. You need to delete those comments, and there you need to write the necessary code to solve this problem. Okay, and don't forget the semicolon at the end of the line. Here are the instructions of the problem. And as you can see here, we have two kinds of comments. This is a one-line comment and this is a multi-line comment. All right, so now as you can see here, we also have a lecture which you can see to solve this problem. So this problem is based upon this lecture. So before you can solve this, you need to make sure that you check this lecture. Only then you'll be able to solve this problem very, very easily. All right, and as you can see here, we have hints and solution. And you can see we cannot click on the hints because it says hint will be available after your second failed attempt. So first of all, you need to write the code, and after 2 times you have failed, these hints will be opened. And you cannot see the solution in the beginning. If you click on it, as you can see, solution explanation will be available after your 3rd failed attempt. Okay, or when you pass this exercise. So after you failed for the 3 times, these hints and the solution both will be opened, and then you can check the solution. All right, so first of all, let's see. This is the problem. It says to do return triple of the number given in the give triple function argument. All right, so first of all, here we have the give triple function, and it says here we need to write the parameter. Okay, so to do that, first of all, I need to delete this thing, and here we need to write a parameter. Now in the give triple function, we are always going to give or pass an integer. So for that, here we're going to create a new integer parameter. We're going to write int, let's say we write num here. So this is a number that you're going to pass right here. Okay, so this is how we have written the first line of code. That is our parameter. Now after the return code, after the return line, we need to write something so that whenever we pass a number through this num variable, we return the triple of that. Okay, so for that, here we need to simply write return num star 3, and then don't forget the semicolon. So this pretty much means whenever this give triple function will be called, we will return whatever number we have passed inside this num variable. We will return the triple of that. Okay, now at the first attempt, I'm not going to write the original or the real code or the correct code because I want to show you how the hints will work. So first of all, let me give a false thing here. So let me go ahead and write 2, because if it guides 3, then you will not be able to see the hints. So first of all, let's check this and click on run tests. Of course, this will give me errors because this will return the wrong result, and after I have given wrong result 2 times, the hints will be opened. So first of all, let's go ahead and click on this run tests. And as you can see, now the Udemy platform is running the tests, and then it will show me the results. And as you can see, as the result of the test case, both of the cases have failed because we have given wrong output. For the first test, expected result was 3, but we have given 2. For the second test, expected result was -15, but we have given -2. So let me go ahead and give it a wrong result one more time. So let's try and write 4 and then click on run test. Alright, so as expected, as you can see, both of the test cases have failed as well because we have given the wrong result. So now, as you can see, 2 times we have failed. So now the hints are opened. So if you click on the hints, as you can see, now here we have got some hints to solve this problem. Simply write a variable in place of the parameter to accept a value in the function. Finally, return the triple of the value received in the function. So for that, here we're going to simply write num star 3. And now I'm going to simply go ahead and click on run tests. And this time it should give me the correct results. So click on run tests. And now as you can see, as expected, the first test has passed and the second test has passed as well. So both of the tests have been passed and we have solved this problem. And now as you can see, the solution has been opened as well because we have solved the problem and we have also completed the problem. So as you can see here, we have the solution code. So if you're unable to solve the problem for more than 3 times, you will get this solution explanation as well. Alright, so this is how you can solve the coding exercises in the new Udemy platform. I hope you will really enjoy solving these problems and learn a lot by actually writing your code. So thank you so much for watching. This is Raja from Charger Games and I'm going to see you in another video very soon. Hi everyone, this is Raja from Charger Games and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn how we can use the coding exercises in the new Udemy platform. So I'm going to show you by example how you can solve a coding exercise and learn from that. So let's get started. So as you can see in this course here, I have some coding exercises. So I'm going to go ahead and as you can see here, we have the lecture and just after this lecture, we have these 2 coding exercises. So I'm going to go ahead and solve any one of them. So I'm going to select this one. And as you can see, once I select that, I get this coding exercises screen. Okay, so this is how a coding exercise looks like in the new Udemy platform. All right, so let's go. First of all, here we have some instructions. Now, before we start, I want to tell you that currently Udemy platform supports many different programming languages. It also supports C# programming language. And in this case, we are only learning how to use the common features of C#. So because Udemy doesn't support the Unity's API, so we cannot learn how to use Unity specific codes here, but still we can learn how to form logic and functions and different methods of the C# programming language from here. All right, so let's get started. So first of all, as you can see here, we have a simple exercise file where we need to write our code. And as you can see here, we have some instructions. And first of all, the problem says calculate the triple of a number. So that means return the triple of the number passed as a parameter in the give triple function. So in the videos prior to this exercise, you will of course learn about functions and parameters and how they will work. So here, as you can see, we have a give triple function. And this is how the things will work. Whenever I give 1 to give triple, it should return me 3. Whenever I give 3 to give triple, it should return me 9. So this is how the function should return. Okay, and you should not modify any of the code. You should only write your code where write your code here and write parameter here. This kind of comments are written. You need to delete those comments and there you need to write the necessary code to solve this problem. Okay, and don't forget the semicolon at the end of the line. Here are the instructions of the problem. And as you can see here, we have 2 kinds of comments. This is a 1-line comment and this is a multi-line comment. All right. So now, as you can see here, we also have a lecture which you can see to solve this problem. So this problem is based upon this lecture. So before you can solve this, you need to make sure that you check this lecture. Only then you'll be able to solve this problem very, very easily. All right, and as you can see here, we have hints and solution. Here you can see we cannot click on the hints because it says hint will be available after your second failed attempt. So first of all, you need to write the code, and after 2 times you have failed, these hints will be opened. And you cannot see the solution in the beginning. If you click on it, as you can see, solution explanation will be available after your 3rd failed attempt. Okay, or when you pass this exercise. So after you failed for the 3 times, these hints and the solution both will be opened and then you can check the solution. All right, so first of all, let's see, this is the problem. It says to do return triple of the number given in the give triple function argument. All right, so first of all, here we have the give triple function and it says here we need to write the parameter. Okay, so to do that, first of all, I'm going to delete this thing, and here we need to write a parameter. Now in the giveTable function, we are always going to give or pass an integer. So for that, here we're going to create a new integer parameter. We're going to write int, let's say we write num here. So this is the number that you're going to pass right here. Okay, so this is how we have written the first line of code. That is our parameter. Now after the return code, after the return line, we need to write something so that whenever we pass a number through this num variable, we return the triple of that. Okay, so for that, here we need to simply write return num star 3, and then don't forget the semicolon. So this pretty much means whenever this giveTriple function will be called, we will return whatever number we have passed inside this num variable, we will return the triple of that. Okay, now at the first attempt, I'm not going to write the original or the real code or the correct code, because I want to show you how the hints will work. So first of all, let me give a false thing here. So let me go ahead and write 2, because if it guides 3, then you will not be able to see the hints. So first of all, let's check this and click on run tests. Of course, this will give me errors because this will return the wrong result, and after I have given wrong result 2 times, the hints will be opened. So first of all, let's go ahead and click on this run tests, and as you can see, now the Udemy platform is running the tests, and then it will show me the results. And as you can see, as the result of the test case, both of the cases have failed because we have given wrong output. For the first test, expected result was 3, but we have given 2. For the second test, expected result was -15, but we have given -2. So let me go ahead and give it a wrong result one more time. So let's try and write 4 and then click on run test. Alright, so as expected, as you can see, both of the test cases have failed as well because we have given the wrong result. So now, as you can see, 2 times we have failed. So now the hints are open. So if you click on the hints, as you can see, now here we have got some hints to solve this problem. Simply write a variable in place of the parameter to accept a value in the function. Finally, return the triple of the value received in the function. So for that, here we're going to simply write num star 3. And now I'm going to simply go ahead and click on run tests. And this time it should give me the correct results. So click on run tests. And now as you can see, as expected, the first test has passed and the second test has passed as well. So both of the tests have been passed and we have solved this problem. And now as you can see, the solution has been opened as well because we have solved the problem and have also completed the problem. So as you can see here, we have the solution code. So if you're unable to solve the problem for more than 3 times, you will get this solution explanation as well. Alright, so this is how you can solve the coding exercises in the new Udemy platform. I hope you will really enjoy solving these problems and learn a lot by actually writing your code. So thank you so much for watching. This is Raja from Charger Games, and I'm going to see you in another video very soon. Hi everyone, welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn about condition checking using if-else statements. So let's get started. So here I've created a new empty script called condition, and I'm going to attach it to our cube to start writing our code. Okay, so let's go and open it up. So there are a lot of instances where we need to check a condition, and depending on whether that condition is true or false, we're going to perform certain actions. As an example, let's say we're going to check if the cube is at a position of less than 5, then we're going to delete the cube. Or let's say if the player has made a score of greater than 5, then we're going to say you win. That means the player has won. If the player has touched the obstacle, then we're going to say game over. So all these things are conditions, and depending on some condition, we're going to perform some actions. So this if-else statements is one of the most important things in any programming language, and in game development as well, it is one of the most important things, because for doing any task, for doing any decisions, we need to check a condition, and whether that is true or not, based on that, we're going to take some decision. Okay. So let's go and open up our condition script and let's check how we can actually start doing it. So as an example, let's say here I have a variable, let's say int a, and the name of the variable, or let's say int score, and let's say the value of the variable is 5. Okay. So currently the value of the variable is 5. Now, what you're going to do is, inside the start function, and if you remember, the start function gets called at the start of the game. So whenever we want to do something once we're going to do it in the start. And if we want to do something again and again and again, then we're going to do it inside the update function. Okay. So in this case, inside the start function, we're going to check if our current score is greater than 10, then we're going to print you win. And if our current score is less than 0 or something, then we're going to say, let's say, first of all, let's check the first condition only. So let's say I'm going to make this a public variable. So I'm going to say public int score. And for now, let's not give it any value, because we can give it a value from our inspector because it's a public variable. Okay, so now is our start function. We're going to check our condition. So in order to check our condition, first of all, we need to write if statements. Okay, first of all, write if, then a pair of brackets. So within this pair of parentheses, we need to actually write the condition that we want to check. So in this case, we want to check if our score is greater than 10 or not. So here we're going to write score is greater than 10. Okay. And if this condition is true, then we're going to execute the body of this condition or body of these if statements. So for that, we're going to give a pair of curly braces. Okay. So inside the parentheses, we have the condition, and inside the curly braces, we have the body of the if statement. That means if this condition is true, only then this thing will get executed. Okay. So if score is greater than 10, we want to print you win. So here we're going to write print you win. Okay. So now if the score's value is anything greater than 10, then you win will be printed, because that is what we are doing in this condition. That is what we are checking in the condition. Okay. So let's go and save this, go back to Unity to check. So currently, if I go back to Unity, you will see here we have a new variable created. So as you can see here, we have a new variable created called score, and currently it has a value of 0. So let's go to window and window general and console. And now if I click on run for the very first time, you will see nothing gets printed on the console. That is because the value of score is currently 0, which is not greater than 10. Now let's say here I can write 15. That means currently the value of our score variable is 15. So 15 is greater than 10. That means you win should be printed because the condition is true now. So let's click on play. And now as you can see, you win gets printed. Okay. So currently, because the score's value is over 10, that is why you win is getting printed. Okay. So now let's say if the condition is true, then we want to do this. But if the condition is not true, in that case here we are not doing anything. But let's try to do something again whenever this condition is not true. So if score is greater than 10, it says you win. Then we're going to write else. That means if score is not greater than 10, score is at any other value which is not greater than 10. In that case, you can write print keep playing. Okay. So if the player's score is not greater than 10, we can print keep playing. And if its score is greater than 10, then we're going to write you win. Okay. So this else statement gets executed only when this if statement is false. If this if statement is true, then this else statement doesn't get executed. All right. So now let's go and click on save, then go back to Unity. And if you take a look at it, the score's value is 15, which is greater than 10. So now if I go to window, general and console, and you can also dock this console window here so that we can easily check it. So I can simply drag and drop this console window right here. And as you can see, I can dock it here. So now we don't need to open it again and again. I can simply click on this console, and from here I can see the console window. Okay. So now if I click on play, you will see you win gets printed. That is because the score is 15, which is greater than 10. Now let's go ahead and make it, let's say 5. Now 5 is not greater than 10. So now our else block will get executed. So now if I click on play, you will see it says keep playing. All right. So if the first condition is true, then the first thing gets executed, and if the first condition is not true, then the else statement gets executed. This is how the if-else statement works. Now let's go ahead and try to implement it in some Unity specific functionality. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check something about the cube, and depending on that, I'm going to either destroy the cube or I'm going to keep the cube at the same point. So here I'm going to check if transform.position.x is, let's say, greater than 5f. That means if the x position of our cube is greater than 5, then we're gonna destroy the game object, that is, we're gonna destroy the cube. Else, that means if the cube's position is not greater than 5f, in that case, we're not going to destroy the cube, but in that case, you're gonna print, let's say, you are safe. Okay, because we're not destroying the cube. So in that case, we're gonna print you are safe. All right, so now we can simply run this project, run this game, and now what will happen is, depending on the position of the cube, depending on the x position of the cube, either this statement will get executed, or if it is not true, this statement will get executed. Click on save or press Ctrl S, go back to Unity, and now let's go and clear it. And now as you can see here, we have the score, and if you select the cube, and the scene, as you can see in the transform component, here we have the position, and as you can see, the x position is currently 0. Okay, so now let's say the x position is 0. So now if I click on play, you will see it says you are safe. That is because the x position of the cube is not greater than 5. But now let's say I'm gonna make the x position of the cube 6. So let's write 6 and press enter. So now the x position of the cube is 6, and now if I click on play, you will see the cube gets destroyed immediately. And that is because that's what we have written in the condition, and that is why the cube is getting destroyed. Now here I have a quick challenge for you. Let's try something different. So you need to write a code so that if the y position of the cube is greater than 10f, then you're going to destroy the cube. Otherwise, you're going to simply print you are safe. Okay, so it is almost same as this one, but a little bit different. So if y position is greater than 10, then destroy. Okay, so this is what you need to do. So go ahead and pause the video and try writing the code, and then I'm going to show you the solution in a minute. All right, so hope you got it right. So let me go ahead and show you the solution. So here we're going to simply say if transform.position.y is greater than 10f, then we're gonna destroy the game object. Else, that is, if it is not true, then we're gonna simply say print you are safe and end it with a semicolon. All right, so now let's go ahead and press Ctrl S to save this. Go back to our Unity. First of all, let's make the cube's x position 0 this time, and the y position is also 0 this time. So both of these things will be safe. So let's click on play, and it will say, it says you are safe, you are safe. Now I'm gonna simply go ahead and make the y position, let's say y position 15, which is greater than 10. So as you can see, currently the y position of the cube is 15. It is on the top. So now if I go ahead and click on play, so I cannot see the cube here, but here you can see the cube. So you can click on play, and as you can see, as soon as I click on play, the cube gets destroyed. For the first one, it says you are safe. So for the x statement, it says you are safe, but for the second statement, it gets destroyed. Okay, so our condition is working, and this is how you write conditions using if-else statements. Now there are a lot more things to learn about the conditions and equality checking, and we're going to learn more about these things in the next videos. So I'm going to see you in the next videos. Hi everyone, this is Raja from Charger Games, and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn about Boolean variables and how they can help us to check conditions. So let's get started. So as you can see here, I have a new script called Boolean attached. Let's open up the script, and currently it's completely empty. So now we're going to learn about Boolean variables. So what are Boolean variables? So previously we have learned about variables like integers, floats, characters, and strings. The same way, we also have another type of variable, Boolean. It can store only two values, true or false. So these Boolean variables can help us to actually detect some conditions where we need to only check true or false for some things. As an example, let's say whenever the game starts, we want to set the game start variable to true. Or let's say if the game is paused, we want to say paused equal to true. And when the game is playing, you want to say paused equals to false. So in those cases, we need this Boolean variable, okay? Another example should be, let's say whenever the game over happens, we need to check if the game over happens, and if the game over is false, then we need to keep playing the game. And whenever the game over is true, we need to stop playing the game, show the game over screen, and all those things. So these are the things that we can do with these Boolean variables very easily. So let's check how we can create Boolean variables. To create Boolean variables, first of all, we need to write bool. Then we need to write the name of the variable. So let's say in this case, I write game over. And by default, it always has a value of false. But let's say we assign a value false to it. Okay, so it can only hold two values, either false or it can hold true. So by default, let's say give it a value of false. All right. So now as you can see, our Boolean game over variable is set to false. So inside the start, what we can do is we can check if game over equals. So this double equal signs is used for comparing two values. This single equal sign is used to assign any values. So whenever we write this and after that we write some value, that pretty much means we are assigning this value to this variable. But whenever we write these double equal signs, which you can call as relational operator, so in this case what we're doing is we are comparing two values. So let's say on one side we have game over and on the other side we have true. So we are comparing if the value of game over is equal to true, then we're gonna simply print game over. Okay, so if this is false, then we're not gonna print anything, but if this is true, then we're gonna simply go ahead and print game over. Okay, so now if you go back to Unity, you will see that game over is not getting printed. So let's go back to Unity, and now if I click on play, you will see nothing gets printed. Okay, so now what we can do is let's go and make this Boolean a public variable so that we can change its value from the editor. So let's go and make it a public variable. So now what will happen is we can actually change its value from the editor itself. So now save this, go back to Unity. Now here you will be able to see the Boolean variable that we have created. So as you can see, now here we have the game over variable, and now as you can see here we have a checkbox, and currently it is not checked. That means currently the value of it is false. So if I click on play, it doesn't print anything. Now let's go and check it. That means now it is true. And in our condition, we have already written if the value of game over is true, then we're gonna print game over. So now let's click on play. And now we'll see game over is getting printed. So this is how we are checking the conditions. Okay. So now let's go ahead and write some code. I have a challenge for you. Write some code so that whenever game over is true, then you're gonna simply go ahead and destroy this cube. Okay, so whenever game over happens or whenever the game over is true, simply the cube will be destroyed. And if the game over is false, then the cube will not get destroyed. So go ahead and try it, and I will see you in a minute. All right, so hope you got it right. So now, in order to solve this problem, here in place of game over, instead of writing print game over, or even after writing print game over, we're gonna simply write destroy game object. And that will go ahead and destroy our game object whenever the value of game over is true. So let's go and try it. Let's go and save this, go back to Unity. And now, as you can see, the game over is not checked. So if I click on play, nothing happens. And now if I go ahead and check it, and now if I click on play, you will see the cube gets destroyed. Now another thing I want to show you is that in this case, we're checking the condition inside the start function. Okay. We are checking it inside the start function. That means it will be checked only once whenever the game starts. Now let's say I uncheck it, and in the middle of the game, while running the game, I go ahead and check it. Now you will see nothing happens. Even if the game over is true, it is not getting destroyed. And that is because this condition is getting checked only once in the start function. Now in order to solve this, what we can do is we can move the code inside the update function. And in that case, the code will get checked again and again, and even while the game is running, if the game over is true, the queue will get destroyed there as well. So let's go and try it. So let's open up the code. And now I can simply go ahead and copy this code by pressing Ctrl C and put it inside the update function. And as I've told you already, since update gets called again and again and again, so every time, every frame it will check if the game over is true. And if it is true, the cube will get destroyed immediately. Alright, so now let's go ahead and save this. Go back to Unity. Alright, so now as you can see, the game over is unchecked, and if I click on play, nothing, it gets printed. Now, since we are calling it from the update, let's go and check it while the game is running. And if I check it, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, check. And as you can see, as soon as I check it, the cube gets destroyed and the game over gets printed. So in this case, since we are doing it in the update, we are checking the condition in the update, the condition is getting checked again and again and again while the game is running. Okay? So this way, you can try checking the condition in the beginning or inside the game whenever you want to do it. So this way we have learned how you can use Boolean variables and check conditions by using the Boolean variables. Okay? So there are some more things that you can know about Boolean variables. Let me go ahead and give you a quick glimpse of them. So whenever you want to make a value false, what you need to do is you need to simply write this sign in front of it. Okay, this can be called as an exclamation sign. So this is a negative sign. You can think of it as a negative sign. So let's say the value of game over is true. But if I write not game over, that pretty much means game over is now false. Okay, so this is a very easy way to make a true value false. Or let's say game over is true. So I can simply write not game over and the game over's value will automatically become false. Okay, so this way, just by writing this exclamation sign, you can actually make a value negative, and this will really help us to check whenever you are checking it here. So as an example, as you can see here, we are checking if game over is true or if game over is false and all that things. So let me go ahead and show it to you. So let's say you need to check if game over equals false. And if it is false, then you might write something or do something that you want to do. So in this case, instead of writing this whole code, what you can do is, in short, you can simply write if not game over, then you can do something. So this not game over is same as game over equals false. And if you write game over, it is same as game over equals true. Okay, so instead of writing game over equals true, you can also write game over. And instead of writing game over equals false, you can simply write not game over or exclamation game over. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and quickly write it for you. So in this case, exclamation game over is same as game over equals false. Okay, so this exclamation game over is same as game over equals false. And the same way, simply by writing game over, if you simply write game over, it is same as game over equals true. Okay, so instead of writing the whole condition, you can simply write game over here as well, and it will work the same because this is a Boolean variable. So whenever you write game over, it will automatically check if game over is true. So whether you write game over equals true, or you can write game over, both of them are same. Or if you write if game over equals false, or if not game over, both of these things are same as I have written here. Okay, so I hope you really enjoyed and learned a lot from this video. I know it might be a little bit confusing if you're doing it for the first time, but as you go ahead and practice more, it will become easy for you. So go ahead and practice some of these things, write some more code, and it will become easy to you. So thank you so much for watching. This is Raja, and in the next videos, we're going to keep learning more of these things. Hey there, welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn how to detect multiple conditions and attach them together to check different things. So let's get started. So we have already learned how we can check one single condition. Let's say we can check if the game over is true or not. We can check if the value of something is greater than 5 or not. But there are some instances where we might need to check for multiple conditions together, and depending on that, we need to take some actions. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So as an example, let's say here we want to check if the player's position is less than 5 and the game is not over, that means the game over is false. In that case, we might need to keep playing. And if the player's position is less than 5 and the game over is true, in that case we might need to destroy the player. So just like this, we might need to check multiple conditions together in different places. For checking multiple conditions, we mainly have two operators. One is AND operator, another one is OR operator. Okay, so we can either check if one value is true or other value is true. Also, we can check if one value is true and the other value is true. So depending on both of these conditions, we might need to check some actions. As an example, let's say currently, as you can see, here we have the cube. And if you take a look at the position, as you can see, the X position currently is at 0. Now let's say we want to keep the cube only within a certain limit. Let's say on the negative side, we want to keep it up to -2. And on the positive side, we want to keep it up to 2. So we want to keep the cube only between these boundaries. So in that case, we need to check if the X position of the cube is greater than -2 and less than +2. Only then we need to keep playing. Otherwise, we're going to say game over. Okay, so whenever the cube goes beyond this boundary, we're going to say game over. So in that case, we need to check two conditions together using the AND operator. Alright, there are many other examples that you can take. As you learn more and do some more examples and build some more games, you will understand it clearly. So for now, first of all, let's give it 0 and let's understand it with some text-based examples. Then we will also learn it with the position of the cube and some real Unity thing. So let's open up the script. And as an example, let's say here we have a int score, or let's say int power equals, for now let's give it a value of 0. Okay, or let's say first of all we make it a public variable so that we can change it from the editor, and then here we're gonna give it a value of 0 for now. Okay, so the value of power is 0. Now in the start, what you're gonna do is we're gonna check if power is greater than 2, and we're going to check if the power is less than 5. Okay, so if the power is greater than 2 and less than 5, here as you can see we have two conditions. Here we have one condition and here we have another condition. Now in order to connect these conditions together, we're going to use the AND operator. And not to use the AND operator, we need to use this ampersand sign twice. So this is the AND operator, and using this we can connect two different conditions. So now it's gonna check if power is greater than 2 and the power is less than 5, only then it's gonna do some actions that I'm gonna tell it to do. So if this happens, let's say here we're gonna say print super power. Okay, so whenever our power is greater than 2 and less than 5, then we're going to print superpower. Okay, else if the, as an example, let's say if the power is less than 2, in that case we might need to do something else. So in this case we're going to check if the power is greater than 2 and less than 5, only then we're going to print superpower. Otherwise, let's say else, we're going to print normal power. Alright, just for testing. So let's go and save this and go back to Unity and make sure to make it a public variable. So let's go back to Unity and wait for it to load. So now as you can see here we have the power variable, and in the console we don't have anything. So currently the power's value is 0. So if I run it, you will see that normal power is written. But now let's go and give it a value of 3. Now 3 is greater than 2 and 3 is also less than 5. That means both of the conditions are true. So now it should print superpower. So let's click on play. And now as you can see, it prints superpower. Now let's say we give it a value of greater than 5. Let's say we give a value of 10. If I give it a value of 10 and if I click on play, Now you will see it prints normal power because that is greater than 5 and greater than 2 as well. Okay, so this condition becomes true only when the power's value is greater than 2 and less than 5. So in this case as well, it prints normal power, but if we write 4 here, as you can see, it will print superpower. So this way we can actually add multiple conditions together. The same way, let's say we want to say if the value of power is greater than 5 and less than 10, then we're going to print ultra power. In that case, here we need to write else if. So whenever we want to add multiple conditions, we need to write else if. That means if this is not true, then check this. Okay, and inside the else if, we're going to check if power is greater than 5 and power is less than 10. In that case, we're going to print ultra power. Let's write ultra power. So now let's go back to Unity and save this. So by default, as you can see, the power's value is 4. That means 4 is greater than 2 and less than 5. That means super power should get printed. So if I click on play, as you can see, it prints super power. Now let's give it some more value. Let's say give it a value of 8. Now if you know 8 is greater than 5 and less than 10, that means now it should print ultra power here. So if I click on play, and now as you can see, ultra power gets printed. So this way we can attach multiple conditions together using the AND operator. Now the same way we're going to learn about another operator called OR operator. Here we have learned about AND operator. Also we're going to learn about OR operator. Whether if any of the two conditions are true, the statement will get executed. In this case, for the AND operator, as you can see, both of these statements should be true. Only then this body will get executed. But in case of OR operator, if any of the condition is true, in that case, the body will get executed. Okay, so let's try our OR operator. So for now, I think I'm gonna go ahead and comment these things out. So if you want to comment all these things out, what you can do is here you can simply write a slash. Here you can simply write a slash and a star. And the same way at the end, you can also write a star and a slash. Okay, so just by writing this, from this point to this point, all these things get commented out. So now these things will get executed in our code and the compiler will not detect these things. Okay, so now let's learn our OR operator. So in order to use the OR operator, what you can do is, let's say we want to check if power is less than 2. And for the OR operator, we're going to use this pipe sign twice. This is generally over the enter key on your keyboard. So you can use this pipe sign twice, and this is going to be our OR operator. So we're going to say if power is less than 2 or power is greater than 10, in that case, we're going to simply go ahead and print normal power. Okay. So in this case, if any of these two conditions are true, normal power will get printed. Now I think we don't need to comment these things out. Let's go and keep these things. We can check them as well. So for now, let's keep them activated. So now what will happen is, if any of these things are true, then this is gonna work. Okay, so let's go and save this. And now I'm gonna go back to Unity. And now as you can see, currently the value of power is 8, and according to our code, ultra power gets printed. Now in our code, we have written if the value of power is less than 2, that means if we give it 1, and if I click on play, you will see it prints normal power. The same way, if the value is greater than 10, in that case as well, normal power should get printed. So if I write 11 here, and if I click on play, normal power gets printed. Okay, so this is how the OR operator works. In case of OR operator, either this value or this value, any of these values, if any of these values are true, this print statement will get executed. But for the AND operator, both of these statements should be true, only then the body or the code will get executed. Okay, so this is the difference between the AND operator and the OR operator. Both of these things are very useful, and you will need both of these things in a lot of places while writing your codes and while writing your conditions. Okay, so hope you understood the concept of AND and OR operators and learned how we can attach multiple conditions together to check multiple conditions. So thank you so much for watching. This is Raja from Charger Games, and thank you so much. I'm going to see you in the next videos where you're going to keep learning more of this cool stuff. Hello and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to start learning about something called functions. So let's get started. Here I have a script named functions attached to my cube so that we can write all those functions related thing in this script. So let's go and open it. So this is our script. So as you can see, by Unity, already two new functions called start function and the update function are created. But these are some of the built-in functions created by Unity. The same way, we can also create our own custom functions to do some certain tasks. Okay, but why do we need to create functions? Let's understand that first. So let's say we want to do a lot of things. So what we can do is we can do all those things and compile all of them together inside one specific function. Let's say we have a function called game over. So what will happen is this function will do all the tasks necessary to be done whenever game over happens. Let's say we have another function that's game start. So all the things that we need to do when the game starts, we're going to put them inside the game start function. And whenever the game starts, we're going to call that function, and automatically all those things will get executed due to that function. Okay. So let's try creating our game over function. So to create a function, first of all, you need to write the name. And because in this case, we don't want anything in return from the function, so before the function, you need to write void. So when we write void, that means we don't want anything in return from the function. We just want it to do some tasks and then stop. Okay. In later videos, we might also learn some functions from where we can actually get in return some values. Okay. So void game over. Then you need to put a pair of parentheses and then a pair of curly braces. So this is the basic structure of a function. So as you can see, void and then the name of the function, a pair of parentheses, and then a pair of curly braces. So this is the basic structure of a function. Now inside the function, let's say inside the game over function, we're going to do all the tasks necessary to be done whenever game over happens. So first of all, let's say we say print game over. So whenever game over happens, first of all, we need to print game over. Then let's say we might show the game over menu. In this case, I'm just writing it, but we need to print it. We need to actually activate it in our case in a real game. Or we also might destroy the game object. Okay. So as you can see here, we have a lot of different tasks that we want to perform whenever game over happens. And we have actually written all those tasks inside this game over function. Now whenever we need to do all these things together, instead of calling all of them together, we can simply call the game over function. And in order to call the function, we need to simply write game over here. And just by writing game over here, we are calling that function. So in the start, this game over function will be called, and inside the game over function, this will be executed, then this will get executed, then this will get executed, and then the function will exit, and then from then the next things will get executed. So whenever we call a function, everything inside the function gets executed, and after that it returns from that function. Okay. Okay. So in this case, whenever game over function is called, automatically all these things get executed. Now let's say inside this we get another boolean variable, and we write public bool game over, and by default we set it to false. So by default the game over function is set to false. And now inside the update, what you're gonna do is we're gonna say if game over, that means whenever game over happens, then we're gonna simply call this game over function. Okay, so if you remember, inside the game over function, we have written all the functionalities that need to be done whenever game over happens. So here we are checking if the game is over, then simply call this game over function and it will take care of everything that needs to be done. So let's go and save this code. And now let's go back to Unity. And now as you can see, inside my function script, we have a game over Boolean variable. So by default, this is false. So if I click on play, you will see nothing happens, not in the console, not in the scene. But as soon as I click on this game over, 3, 2, 1, click, you will see game over gets printed and this cube also gets destroyed. So now whenever the game over variable is true, the game over function gets executed and all the tasks that we have given to it are getting executed as well. So this is how functions work, and this is how you can create custom functions. You can also create other functions. Let's say you create another function that will simply go ahead and change the position of the cube. Or let's say you create another function that will actually move the cube. Or let's say you create another function that will take the inputs from the player. So this way you can create different functions to take different functionalities and execute them whenever you call that function. Okay. So this is how you create the basic functions. So I hope you understood it. So go ahead and practice it, and I'm going to see you in the next videos. Hi and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn more about functions. So we have already learned how to create custom functions, which doesn't return anything and which has a return type of void. So these functions don't return anything. They just perform some tasks and they return without returning any value. So now we're going to learn about some other functions which can also return some values, and they can also take some parameters in them so that we can pass some values in that functions. So let's see how we can do that. So let's say I create a function that will simply give us the squared value of a number. Okay. So if I give it 5, it will give me 25. If I give it 6, it might give me 36. If I give it 10, it will give me 100. So this way, it will give us the squared value of that number whichever number we pass. So for that, first of all, we need to write the name of the function. So let's say I write the name of the function square calculator, and then a pair of parentheses, and then a pair of curly braces. So previously, if you remember, we didn't have a return type. We simply wrote void in front of the functions. But in this case, we actually want to get something in return from the function. So in this case, we want to get an integer return from the function. Let's say we give it 5, it will return us 25. That means we want to get an integer in return from the function. So that is why in front of the function, we have to write int. So now, instead of a void, the return type is int. Okay. And now, as you can see within this parentheses, this is the part where we can pass some parameters to the functions. Okay. So in this case, what you're going to do is we're going to pass some parameters to the function, and the function will do some calculations, and then it will return us the value after doing all these calculations. So here we're going to simply write int num. Okay. So here we're going to pass a number, and that number will be stored inside this num variable. Then we need to calculate the square of the number and then return it. So this is the whole task of the function. So here, in order to calculate the square of the number, we need to write num equals num star num. Okay. So this num star num pretty much means we are multiplying these two numbers. That means if we have the number called 5, then it will be 5 star 5. And after multiplying 5 star 5, that is 25, it is assigning the value again inside the num variable. Okay. So first of all, it is multiplying both of the values and then returning the value inside the num variable. So if previously the value of num was 5, now the value of num will be 25. If the value was 6, now it will be 36. So this way, the squared number is now assigned to this num variable. So finally, we need to return the squared number from this function. For that, here we need to simply write return num. Okay, and then a semicolon. So now as you can see, all the errors are gone. So what this square calculator functions does is whenever we pass a number, it squares that number and then returns us that number. Now let's go ahead and see how we can actually calculate squares using this square calculator. Okay. So here inside our start function, let's say we call square calculator, square, not spare, square calculator function. And then in this case, we need to pass a value. So here we need to pass, let's say 5. So if we pass 5, then what will happen is this 5 will be stored inside this number, and then here it will happen 5 multiple 5, this is 25. 25 will be stored inside this number, and finally 25 will be returned from this function. Okay, so now if I go ahead and here create another variable, that is int result equals square calculator 5, then what will happen is the returned number, that is 25, will get stored inside this result, and finally we can print the result. So we can write print result. Okay, so now just by writing this, whatever number we pass inside this will get here and its square will be calculated and it will be returned. Finally, the returned value will be stored inside this result variable, and finally the result will get printed. So here let's go and create another new variable, and this will be a public int, let's say number, and whatever number now we write in that, we're gonna pass that number here inside this number variable. Okay, so now what will happen is whatever number we give here, this number, let's say we give 5, we give 10, we give 20. So whatever number we give to this variable will be passed as a parameter on this function, and then this function will run. So the square of that number will get calculated, it will return that number, it will be stored inside the result, and finally the result will get printed. So now if I go ahead and go back to Unity, and as you can see here we have functions and it is waiting for the number. So let's give a number like 5 and go to console, and if I go ahead and click on play, you will see 25 gets printed. So here if I pass, let's say 56 and click on play, you will see the square of 56 gets printed. If I write here, let's say 25, if I click here, as you can see 625, it gets printed. So this way, using a custom function and its parameters, we can easily get a square of any number and can also return any number. The same way you can also create a function which might do addition, which might do subtraction, which might do some tasks and then return us some value. So this is the main functionality of these functions, which can take a value and return us something. Here I have given a very simple example. You can also try creating other examples as well. As an example, let's say you want to move your player. So in that case, you create a function which will take some values, and depending on that, it will move the player to that position and then it might return. So this is how we create custom functions with return types and parameters as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed and learned a lot from this video. So go ahead and practice, create some of your own functions and practice this concept by performing some different tasks. And I'm going to see you in another video very soon. Hey everyone, this is Raja and welcome back to this video. So in this video, we're going to start learning about loops in C# and how we can use them in Unity as well. So let's get started. So first of all, as always, I have created a new script and I'm going to attach it to our cube, and we're going to do our experiments on this cube only. So I'm going to double click to open it up in Visual Studio. Alright, so first let's understand what is a loop and why do we actually need it. So as you know, a loop means doing something repeatedly again and again and again. You can think of it as a playlist of music or a playlist on YouTube. Let's say you start from the beginning of the playlist, and if you start playing the videos, automatically each video will play and again it will go to the first video. So this is how loops work. So whenever you want to do some tasks repeatedly again and again, in those cases you want to use loops. Okay? So now, in this case, what you're going to do is, we're going to try to understand why do we need loops with a very simple example. So first of all, let's say in my start function, I go ahead and write print, let's say I write print 1, or let's say I write print 0. And then I'm going to write print 1. So this way, let's say I want to print all the numbers from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. You might think that this is very easy. So let's go and print 0, print 1, print 2. And this way, let's copy this one. And you might think this is very easy. So let's go and copy this and go ahead and write some more. And this way I can print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this way I can print 8, 9, 10, all that. Here I can go ahead and write 9, and here I can write 10, and then I can delete these statements. So now if I go ahead and save this code and go back to Unity, so if I now go to the console and click on play, you will see we are printing from 0 to 10. Okay, so this way we are actually printing from 0 to 10. So you might think this is very easy and I can easily do that. But let's say I tell you to print till 1000 or maybe 1 million. In those cases, it's not a good idea to print all those things one by one because it might need years or months to do that. So our task in coding is to make things easier using coding. If I write things manually, then why do we need to code? We can do it even in paper. Okay, so that is why we need loops. Using loops, just by writing 1 or 2 lines of code, we can print 0 to 10 or 0 to 100, 0 to 1000, 0 to million, anything that we want to. Okay, so that's what we're going to do using loops. So first of all, here, what you're going to do is, inside our start function, we're going to first of all learn how to use a loop called for loop. For loop is very structured loop and it is very easy to understand for beginners. Okay. So in order to create a for loop, first of all, you need to write for, then you need to give a pair of parentheses and then a pair of curly braces. So this pair of curly braces is the body of the for loop. So these are the statements that's going to execute as long as the loop runs. And we're going to specify inside this parentheses how long this loop is going to run. Okay. So first of all, we need to initialize a counter. And what is a counter? You will understand it slowly. So let's say I write int I equals 0. So this I is a counter. Okay. And then we need to put a semicolon. After that, we need to put the condition up to which this loop will run. So in this case, we're going to run the loop only until I is less than 11. Okay, because we want to print from 0 to 10, that is why we're going to print up from I 0 to 11. And then at the final statement, we need to write I plus plus. That pretty much means we are incrementing the counter. So in the beginning, the value of I will be 0. Then it will check, is the value of I less than 0? Less than 11? Yes, 0 is less than 11. So let's go ahead and execute whatever we have written inside the loop and then increment the value of I. So now the value of I will be 1. This way the loop will keep running and it will keep printing all this. So here, now we're going to simply write print the value of I instead of writing print 1, 2, 3, 4, all these things. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and simply comment this code out so that we can understand. So let's go and write slash and star here. And at the end as well, write this slash star and slash, and this way we're going to comment this code out. Okay, so now this code has been commented and this code is going to work. So now let's go and click on Ctrl S to save this, go back to Unity and see how this loop is running. So let's go back to Unity. So now I'm going to go to the console, clear this and then click on play. And now as you can see, we have got printed from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all these things just by writing one simple line of code. So just by writing these 2 lines of code, we have used a for loop, and using that we are printing from 0 to 10. And if I ask you to print from 0 to 100, 0 to 1000, 0 to million, you can do that easily. Let's say here write 0 to 1000. 1000 or 0 to 1000. In that case as well, if you save this, go back to Unity. Now let's go and clear it and let's click on play. 3, 2, 1, click. And now as you can see, as soon as I click on it, just within 1 second, from 0 to 1000, 0 to 999 has been printed. Alright, so this is how loops work. Using loop, you can easily do repetitive tasks just by writing one single line of code. Okay. So let me go ahead and quickly show you or demonstrate you or explain to you how this works one more time. So first of all, what we are doing here. First of all, we are writing a for loop. Inside the for loop, first of all, we're creating a counter. Our counter is I. And in the beginning, we are giving the I a value of 0. Alright. After giving I the value of 0, we are checking a condition. Okay, so the first thing is the initialize counter. Then we are checking condition. And finally we are incrementing counter. So these are the three parts of a for loop, and each part is separated by a semicolon. Make sure to write that because that's essential. So in the first part, we are writing initializing counter by writing I equals 0. Okay. In the next part, we are checking if I is less than 10, which is our condition here. Now 0 is of course less than 10. Okay. So the statement is true. And if this statement is true, that means we're going to execute whatever we have written inside the for loop. Okay. And after the statement is executed, we're going to come to this part. And this part will increment the value of the counter. So if you remember, previously the value of I was 0. And this plus plus means we are incrementing the value of this counter by 1. So if it was 0, it will be 1. If it is 1, it will be 2. So in the beginning it was 0, so now it will be 1. Then it will come to here again. So the loop will keep running until this condition is true. It will stop when this condition is false. Okay, so the loop runs until the condition is true. So when the condition becomes false, the loop will stop running. So if you take a look at here, after the I gets incremented, now the value is 1. So again it will come here and it will check if 1 is less than 10. Yes, 1 is less than 10. So that means go ahead and print the value of I again. So now I will print 1. Then again it will increment the value. So now it will become 2. Now it will become 2. Okay. Then again it will come here and it will check, is 2 less than 10? Yes, 2 is less than 10. That means go ahead and print 2. And after that increment the value of I. So now it will be 3. So this way, when we go to the final part, I's value will be 10. At the final part, I's value will be 10. And then it will check, is 10 less than 10? And this is where the condition will become false. 10 is not less than 10. That means we are not going to execute the statement anymore. That means we are not going to execute the next statement anymore. So that is where the loop will stop and we will exit from this for loop. Okay, so in order for this loop to run, or in order for this loop to continue running, the condition must be true. If the condition becomes false, in that case, we'll go out of the loop. So this is how the loop works, and this is how the loop runs, and this is how the for loop actually works. Now there are a lot of examples that we can take to demonstrate this thing. In this case, I have tried to demonstrating a very simple thing where we are incrementing an integer. The same way, you can also, let's say I tell you to print my name or your name 10 times or 100 times. In that case, you just need to write all these things same. Here, instead of writing I, simply write print Raja. Okay. So here's a quick challenge for you. Let's go and create another for loop. So your challenge is create another for loop and print your name, let's say 5 times. Print your name 5 times. So this is a challenge. Create a for loop and print your name 5 times. So give that a go and I'm going to see you in a minute. Alright, so hope you got it right. So let me go ahead and quickly show you the solution. So here you can simply write for int I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. Okay, and then simply create the body of the loop. Then here you can simply write print Raja and then give a semicolon. And now let's go and find out how this works. For now, let me go ahead and comment this one out so that we can see that. So let's go and comment this one out, save this and go back to Unity. Now let's go ahead and clear the console and click on play and you will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have got my name printed 5 times. So this is how the for loop works. Now you can do it in another way as well. Let's say instead of starting from 0, I start from 1. I set I to 1. In that case, I need to write the condition that I should be less than 6. Okay, because when the value of I is 1, it will print. When the value of I is 2, it will print 3, print 4, print 5, print, and after that when the value of I becomes 6, it will not print. So this is how you can print 5 times. So whether you start from 0 or you start from 1, both of these cases should return the same result unless the condition is fulfilling that criteria. Okay, so in this case, let me show it to you again. So let's go ahead and save this, go back to Unity and check how this works. So let's go and click on play, and you can see that in this case as well, 5 times our name has been printed. So both of these things work the same, and you can use any of these things to print the name like this. Okay, so I hope you really enjoyed and learned about loops from this video, specifically about for loops. So thank you so much. Go ahead and do some practice, and I'm going to see you in the next videos. Hello and welcome back to this video. So we have already learned the concept of loops and how loops work and how we can use them in code. But we have learned about for loop for now. In this video, we're going to learn about another loop, which is while loop. And this is going to be very useful. So let's get started. So here I'm going to open up my script. So first of all, let's try to perform the same task in for loop and while loop so that you can understand how both of the different loops actually work. Okay, so let's try to write the most simple thing. Let's say I'm going to print my name 5 times. So if I'm going to do it in a for loop, I'm going to say for int I equals 1, I less than 5, and I plus plus. So for 5 times, I'm going to write I less than 6. Okay, I less than 6, I plus plus. Or you can also write here I less than equals 5. I less than equals 5. So both of these things are same. So whether you write I less than 6 or I less than equal 5, both of them are same. Because I less than 6 means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I less than equal to 5 means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because when I is 5, 5 is equal to 5. So this condition will be true there as well. So either you can write I less than 6 or you can write I less than equal to 5. Both of these things will work. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to simply write this, and then I'm going to print Raja. Print Raja. Okay, so this is how the for loop works. Now the while loop will work similarly, but the structure is a little bit different from this one. So in case of while loop, first of all, we need to write while, then a pair of parentheses, and then a pair of curly braces. Okay, and I guess you have guessed it already. Inside this parentheses, we need to write the condition, and this is where we need to write the body of the loop. Okay, so here we don't need to initialize a variable. We just need to write the condition, and we need to initialize the variable separately in the beginning. Okay, so that is why in case of while loop, you don't need to initialize it exactly inside it, but you need to initialize it before creating the loop. So that is why the for loop is a little bit more convenient, because you can do all these things here. But in case of while loop, you might need to create a separate variable here. Let's say you create a variable called int j and set it to 0 here. Or you can simply write int counter and set it to 0 here as well. So let's say int j equals 0. I do it like this. Okay, and now inside the while loop, we need to give the condition. So what will be the condition? The condition is j less than 6 or j less than equal to 5, anything that you want to write. And then you're going to simply write print Raja. Print Raja. So if you take a look at the for loop, the first part, initialization, has been taken care of here. The second part, the condition, has been taken care of here. And then we have written the body. We have written the body of the loop here. And finally, we need to give this increment statement. And where are we going to write it? We're going to write it after executing our statement. At the end of a loop, we're going to write j++. So this is how a while loop works. So whether you write it like this for loop, or if you write it like this in a while loop, both of them will work the same. Okay, so to test it, let's go and go to Unity and try checking how this works. So in this case, instead of writing Raja, let's write Raja2, so that we can see if both of them are giving the same results. So let's go and save it and go back to Unity. And here I need to give 1 because we are printing 5 times only. So save this, go back to Unity And now if I go ahead and click on play, you will see Raja has been printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and Raja 2 has been printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Okay, so whether you write it using the while loop or you write it using the for loop, both of them are giving the similar results. And the same way you can also here write less than equal to 5 instead of writing less than 6. Okay, so both of them are going to give you the same results. So this is how you're going to use the while loop and the for loop. But the while loop might be very useful where you don't need to initialize a variable. There are a lot of cases where you don't need to initialize a variable. Let's say in a game you need to write an infinite loop. Okay, so don't try it right now, I'm just showing it to you. So you need to write an infinite loop when you write while true. Okay, so while true pretty much means true is always true, so it's gonna be infinite. Okay, so anything that you write here will go infinitely until your system crashes. Okay, so this is an infinite loop. So if you write while true, then after that you do this, then your system will crash and it will keep running again and again. So when you create an infinite loop, you also need to give a breaking condition inside it. Okay, so here you can say that if let's say here we create another variable called game over, bool game over, let's say public bool game over, and in the beginning game over is set to false. And now inside the while loop you're gonna write if game over is true, or if game over, then you're gonna return from this loop. Okay, so this is how you can actually return from a loop, or you can also write here break. Okay, so this break as well will go and return from this. So this is how you can actually exit from a loop or return from a loop. Okay, so this is how. So when you create an infinite loop like this, make sure you also give a statement with which the loop will return to other conditions, or loop will end, because if you create an infinite loop that doesn't have any breaking condition, then it's gonna keep running again and again and again for infinite times, and your system will definitely crash. So let's try it, and I think my system might crash, but let's try it. Okay, so let's go back to Unity. Actually in the while loop we're not doing anything, so let's try to do something. In the while loop, let's try to print loop. I'm in a loop, I'm stuck. Let's try to print I'm stuck. Okay, and here we can go ahead and for now we can simply comment these codes out because we don't need them right now. So let's go and save this. So my system might crash, but I'm just doing this just to show you how infinite loop works. So let's go back to Unity. So let's go and clear it, and here as you can see the game over variable is ready. So I'm gonna keep my mouse here so that I can click and stop it. So let's click on play, and now I can click on here, and as you can see my system has crashed. So already my system has crashed because of the infinite loop. Alright, so Unity was crashed and I had to restart it. So I showed it to you just so that you know that infinite loops exist, and every time you create an infinite loop you need to create it very sincerely. You cannot simply create a while loop, infinite loop inside a start function. That's not gonna work. There are places where you can use it and use them there. Okay, so this is how I wanted to demonstrate you while loop, and how you can create an infinite loop, and why you should not create an infinite loop without a condition. Okay, so I hope you really enjoyed and learned from this video. So thank you so much for watching. This is Raja, and go ahead and practice it, and I'm going to see you in the next videos very soon. Hello and welcome back. So in this video we will start learning about arrays. So let's get started. So we have already learned about variables. So in this video let's take a look at why do we need arrays, because we already have variables. So let's take an example. So let's say I want to store the names of all the students of our class in a variable in a computer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and create a new variable for each of their names and store their names in those variables. Or let's say I want to store the marks of all the students inside in my computer. In that case as well, I will create, let's say there are 50 students in the class, I will create 50 different variables, and all those 50 variables I will store the marks of the students. As an example, let's say I create student ones, and inside this I store the marks of, let's say, 55. student 2, and there I stored the marks of, let's say, 60, something like that. So this way I need to create more and more variables like this, and then I can actually store all of their marks inside these variables. Okay, so let's say there are 100 students in a class, and in the whole school there are 1,000 students. Then how can we create 100 and 1,000 variables, and we need to remember each of their names every time we need to actually get their numbers? Or let's say we want to store their names. In that case as well, we need to create 50 different variables of string, and each of them should be name of the students. So let's say string name1 should be the name of the first student, which is probably Raja, as always. And string n2, here we might create another name, which will be Suman. And then we have another string n3 where you might store this name. So this way we might need to create 50, 100, 1,000 different variables to store all the different values. Okay, so now what we need to do is, instead of doing all these things, which becomes very hassle, we need to create an array. An array can store array can store a lot of number of data inside it, inside one single name. Okay, so we just need to store one single name, and inside that we can store multiple different values. All right, and then we can access those values easily by creating an indexes, by using an index value. Okay, so the array has an index value. So let's take a look at how we can store these variables inside an array. So let's say instead of creating different variables, I'm going to store the marks of the students inside an array. In that case, first of all, we need to write int, because we are going to create an array of type int. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. An array can store only variables of one single data type. So if you want to store variables of other data type, in that case you need to create another different array. If you create an integer array, you can only store integer variables in it. It doesn't matter 50, 60, 100, 1,000, but all of them should be integers. If you create an array of strings, in that you can only store string values. Okay, so first of all, here we're going to create an array of integer variables. For that, first of all, we need to write int, then we need to write a pair of square brackets, and then we need to write the name of the array. Let's say we give it the name of marks, because we're going to store the marks of the students. So this is how we have created an array. Now in C#, you don't need to specify how many elements you need to store, you're gonna store inside an array in the beginning. But there are languages like C and C++ where you need to specifically write how many elements you want to store in the array at the beginning of your code. Okay, so if you're coming from the C and C++ backgrounds, then this might be a little bit confusing for you. So in this case, you don't need to specify any number of things. Okay, so this is how we have created an array called marks, and it is of type integer. Now how are we going to actually add values inside this marks array? There are different ways by which you can add elements to this marks array, and I'm going to show you all of them one by one. So let's say the easiest way or the simplest way to add is by writing equal, then within a pair of curly braces you need to write all the elements giving a comma. Let's say 55, 60, 52, and 63, 64. So this is how we have created 4 different integer variables, and all these 4 different integer variables are now stored inside this marks array. Okay, so now how can we access each of these variables? Let's try to understand that as well. So as I have told you already, an array has index values. So each element is at a particular index, and the array index starts at 0. So the first element is at number 0, the second element is at number 1, the third element is at number 2, the fourth element is at number 3. Okay, so you should remember that array index starts with 0. This is really essential, because a lot of times people start with 1, and because in general we start with 1 everything, but in array everything starts with 0. So the first element is at 0, the second element is at 1, the third element is at 2, and the fourth element is at 3. So this is how the array works, and as you can see here we have different 4 different elements and we have added them to our array. So in our start, first of all, let's try to print the length of the array. The length means how many elements are there inside this array. As we can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different elements. So here we can simply go ahead and print marks dot length. Okay, so if you write simply marks dot length, then it's going to print the length of the array. That means how many elements are there present inside the array. So let's go and save this, go back to Unity, and now if I click on play, you will see it prints 4. That means there are 4 elements in the array and it is rightly written. Okay, so this is one of the ways by which we can add elements inside an array. But there are other ways as well by which you can add elements. So the other way is like this. So let's say you don't want to initialize it at the beginning line. So in that case, what you need to do is you need to write the name of the array, that is marks. Then within the square brackets, not this one, then within the square brackets, you need to write the index where you want to add the value. So this thing actually got repositioned. So let me go ahead and position it here. Okay. So let's say I need to know at which index I'm going to add the value. So let's say I'm going to add a value at the 0th index. In that case, here I need to write 0. So marks 0 equals, let's say now 45. So previously it was 55. But now I'm going to change it to 45. Oh, so actually I was doing it inside the class body itself, but you cannot do that. You can initialize it directly when you create it, but if you want to add these elements, you need to do it inside the start function or update function or inside any other function. So let me go ahead and cut it and put it right here. And then I'm going to comment this one out because we don't need it. So now as you can see, marks 0 is now 45. Previously it was 55. The same way, let's say I want to change the element that is at number 3. So in that case, I'm going to write marks. This is not number 3 actually, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3. Number 3. Marks 3 equals, let's say, 67, 68. Okay. So this is how we can put different values at different elements of the array. So now let's try to print out the elements one by one and see how that works. So if you want to print the array elements, then the same way, just need to write print marks, and within square brackets, let's write 0. And the same way, we can also write print marks, and within square brackets, let's say write 3. Okay, so this way you can access the array. So whenever you want to access the elements of the array, you need to write the name of the array. Then within square brackets, you need to write the index which we want to access. So whether you are assigning a value or you are getting the value from that index, you need to write it in the same structure like this. So let's see if this prints the correct values, because previously they were 55 and 64, but now we have changed the values to 45 and 68. So let's go and save this and go back to Unity. Okay, so now let's go ahead and click on play, and you will see it now prints 45 and 68 because that is the number that we have given to the array right now. Previously it was different. Alright, so this is how we create array and also initialize the array by writing code directly. Now there are some other ways by which you can initialize the array as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So let's say we create a public array. So let's say we create a public array, public string and names. Or let's say names. So this is not an array, this is a variable. So in order to create an array, we just need to write a pair of square brackets in front of this one. So after writing the data type, we need to create a pair of square brackets. So this way we have created an array of string variables which can only store string variables with the name names. Alright, so now since this is a public array, let's go save this code and go back to Unity and see how we can see a public array. Previously you have seen that we can see public variables from the inspector, but now let's see how we can see the public arrays from the inspector. So let's go and save this and go back to Unity. Alright, so here as you can see inside this array script, I have this names array, and currently the list is empty because here as you can see this is the length of the array. And currently it is set to 0. So let's go and set the length to 3 and then press enter. And now as you can see, we have slots for 3 different elements. Okay, so just like we were adding to different elements from the code, the same way we can also do it from the inspector as well. So here as you can see, for the element 0, let's give it a name Raja. For the element 1, let's give the name Suman. And for the element 2, let's give the name Rio. So this way we have added 3 different elements to 3 different places of this names array. So let's go and try to print them, and let's check if these are correct or not. So let's go back to our code once again, and inside of start, now I'm gonna print, first of all I'm gonna print names 0, and then I'm gonna print names, and then I'm gonna print 2. Okay, so this is how I'm gonna print. So the 0th element is the first one, and the 2 number element is the third one. So let's go and save this, go back to Unity. Now let's go and click on play, and you will see it prints Raja and Rio, which are the 0th element and 2nd element of this array. So this is how we can create array, and we can also access different elements of this array. Now here I have a quick challenge for you. Let's go and create a new public array with name points. And inside this array, you will store points of 5 different players. Okay, so there will be 5 different things. And this is going to be a public array. So you don't need to assign it directly here. You need to assign it from the Unity inspector by writing there. Okay, so you don't need to write it from the code, write it from the Unity inspector. And then after assigning the 5 different values, then what you need to do is you need to print the 2nd element, the 2nd point, 2nd element, and also print the 4th element. Okay, so let's go and try this challenge, and I'm going to see you in a minute with the solution. Alright, so welcome back. Hope you had fun with that. So here let's go and create the array. So we're going to create int, and after that we're going to write a pair of square brackets, and before that we're going to write public, and then we're going to name this array points. Okay, so here we have our points array. So now we need to print the 2nd element and also the 4th element. So if you remember, the array index starts from 0. So the 2nd element means the element at 1 location. Okay, so here we need to print points, and we're going to write 2nd element, we're going to write 1. And for the 4th element, we're going to write points 3. Okay, so for the 2nd element, we're going to write 1, and for the 4th element, we're going to write 3. So this is how we can create, and we have created the array, and we have also we're also printing the points at 2nd and 4th location. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to go to Unity and create the array from there and add some elements and create 5 different elements and add those elements on those places. So let's save this and go back to Unity. Now let's clear this, and here as you can see, here we have a points array now. So inside that points array, I need to create 5 elements. So let's write 5 here and let's enter. Now as you can see, 5 different elements have been created. For the first one, let's give it 10, then 15, then 25, then let's say 4, and then let's say 8. So now we have 5 different elements, and I have told you to print the 2nd element, the 2nd element, and the 4th element. And as you can see, the 2nd element is at element 1 and the 4th element is at element 3. That is, 2nd element is at index 1 and the 4th element is at index 3. So if I go ahead and click on play, the 15 and 4 should get printed now. So let's go and click on play. And now as you can see, 15 and 4 is getting printed, which is the 2nd element and the 4th element. So our code is working. So hope we had fun with this challenge and you enjoyed learning about arrays in this video. This video was a bit long, but we have learned a lot of information. So go ahead and practice it, and as much as you practice, you will remember these things. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next video very soon. Hello and welcome back to this video. So we have already learned about arrays in detail. So in this video, we're going to learn about more examples of array with some practical examples. So let's get started. So previously we have learned how we can store numbers or names inside integer arrays or string arrays or things like that. But other than that, we can also store other game objects or any element from the scene inside an array. So this is what we're going to do in this video. So let's get started. So first of all, let's go and open up our array script. And here I'm going to create a new public variable, not a public variable, public array. So we can write public. And this is going to be an array of game object. So when you create an array of game object, inside that you can store any element from Unity's scene or Unity's hierarchy. So you're going to create a public game object, and we're going to name this one array. And let's say we name it elements. Okay. Or you can also name it game objects or game score or anything like that. So here we are creating an array of game objects inside this elements name. So now let's go and try to find out how we can actually add more elements to it, and then we can perform some actions in that array. So let's go and save this and go back to Unity. Okay, so here as you can see we have this elements array, and currently the list is empty. So let's go and create some elements. So let's go for now create 4 different elements and press enter. So here we can store different game objects from our scene. So let's go and create some objects to make it look really cool. So here I'm going to create a 3D object, and I'm going to create a sphere, and I'm going to drag the handle to put it on this side. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a 3D object, and this time I'm going to create a capsule, and I'm going to put this capsule right here. Then I'm going to go ahead and create another 3D object, and this time let's say create a cylinder, and I'm going to put the cylinder right over here, somewhere like this. The same way, let's say in this case we can go ahead and create a let's say we create another thing. We can create another cube, and this time I can put it right here. Okay, so this way we have different objects that are stored inside our scene. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some colors or materials to these objects to make them look really cool. To do that, inside my assets folder, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name this one materials, and then inside that I'm going to right click, create, and then I'm going to click on material, and let's name this one mat1. So I'm going to name this one mat1, and let's give it a color like yellow or something like that. Okay, so this is our first color. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Ctrl D to duplicate them. So press Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D. So this way we can duplicate and create multiple elements or multiple materials quickly. Now for the second one, we're going to select it and give it a different color. Let's say in this case I give it a color like this. For the third one, I select it and give it a different color. Let's say I give it a greenish color. For the fourth one, I select it and give it a sky-like color, blue-like color, something like this. Now I'm gonna go into my scene and drag the first material onto my cube or onto my sphere, drag the second material onto the cylinder, the third material onto the cube, and the fourth material onto this capsule. So this way, as you can see, we have different materials with different colors in our scene. So now I'm gonna store all these elements inside an array. So let's select the first cube that we have created where we have our script attached. Let's go and rename this cube to something like code manager, because we all have all of our codes here and the others one are different. So this is our code manager, and here as you can see we have an array called elements created, and we already have 4 different elements here. So for the element 0, we can drag and drop our sphere right here. Alright, for the element 1, we're gonna drag and drop our capsule right here. For element 2, we're going to drag and drop our cylinder. And for the element 3, we're going to drag and drop our cube. Okay, so now we have an array called elements in which we have access to all these 4 different elements. Okay, so now if I want to access the sphere, I can simply write elements 0. If I have to access the cylinder, I need to write element 1. If I have to access the capsule, then I can write, okay, the capsule is here. So if I have to access the capsule, then I need to write elements 1. If I have to access the cylinder, which is here, I need to write elements 2. Okay, the same way we can, if you have to access this cube right here, I have to write elements 3. So this way I can access all of these variables. So here I have a quick challenge for you. Let's go and open up this script, and inside the start function write some code so that whenever the game starts, this what can I destroy? Whenever the game starts, this cylinder get destroyed. So open up your code editor and write a code inside the start function so that whenever the game starts, this cylinder gets destroyed and you can access this cylinder from this array. So go ahead and try this challenge, and I'm going to see you in a minute. Alright, so hope you enjoyed the challenge. Let's go and show you the solution. So let me go ahead and open up this array2 script. So if you remember, I told you to delete this cylinder, and the cylinder is at element 2. That is the third position, and it is at element 2. So if I have to access the cylinder, I need to access the 2 index from this elements array, and then we can destroy it. So let's open up our script. And now inside the start function, first of all, we're going to write destroy. And then within that, first of all, we need to write elements, which is the name of the array. And then within square brackets, we need to write the index which we want to destroy. So we want to destroy the index which is at 2. We want to destroy the element which is at index number 2. Okay. So now let's click on semicolon, click on save, or press Ctrl S and go back to Unity. So we have our cylinder at the index number 2. So whenever the game starts, the cylinder should get destroyed. So let's click on play. 3, 2, 1, play. And as you can see, as soon as the game starts, the cylinder gets destroyed. And in the array, as you can see, it says missing game object because it doesn't have access to the cylinder anymore because that has been destroyed from the scene. Okay, so this is how we can access game objects from the scene and add them inside array, and we can perform different actions to them. From the array, we can take the sphere and add some force to it, put it on the right side, give it some velocity, make it bounce, anything like that from the array. And this way we can get access to different elements to the array, and we can also store different elements inside an array. So I hope you really enjoyed this video and learned a lot of new things. So thank you so much for watching, and in the next videos we're going to keep learning more and more cool stuff.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss any update.